So one of the things that really piqued my interest in thinking about Supernova and how it would relate to this healthcare show was fitting in healthcare as an industry or as a sector to a broader portfolio. I mean, we talk a lot on the show about specific stocks, and it's almost more stock advisor rule breakers-y, where we're like, oh, we're really bullish on Gilead Sciences, but we don't really ever talk about how you would fit that into the broader portfolio and what you should be thinking about when you look to allocate specific percentages to different companies. So what is the strategy there, and how do you use it for healthcare?
Sure. Well, taking a step back, as I mentioned, Supernova, this is really David Gardner's service. We're following his style of looking at kind of growth investing style. Within the Supernova universe, which is about 200 companies now, again, these are all the companies he's recommended over the past 12 years or so. A good chunk of those are healthcare or biotech companies, and they've actually outperformed the Supernova universe as a whole. So the biotech stocks have outperformed the rest of the stocks, by a decent margin. But then on the flip side, the amount of members that we see following those biotech stocks is much less than the other stocks. So there's kind of a disconnect there. So
it's understandable. It's kind of a complicated space. It's hard to really know what you're doing in it.
Right. Because, obviously consumer-facing companies like Chipotle or Under Armour, those are companies we see every day. But unless you're a scientist or a doctor, or in some cases maybe a patient, you're not going to have that hands-on experience with these different drugs and the drug development. So
buying a burrito is a little bit easier to understand than developing a CAR T receptor.
Just a bit, yeah. So part of what we're doing in Supernova with our newest real money portfolio, Odyssey 2, which I'm heading up, we actually have a team member, Brian O'Reilly, who happens to have a PhD in cancer biology from the University of Chicago. So he's someone who has a lot of expertise with biotech and the healthcare space. So we've been talking to Brian, how do we fit these biotech stocks, which have been historically great performers within Supernova, how do we fit those into a real money portfolio like Odyssey 2? And we're just starting out, launching today. And I think kind of the conclusion that Brian reached and that we reach is, obviously we're not going to put 50% of the portfolio into biotech stocks, just like we're not going to put 50% of the portfolio into any one industry or another. So you might see, between 10 to 25% of the portfolio put into biotech stocks. We're not going to have a hard number. There are a lot of nuances with investing, but then you have to take a step back and think, okay, are we focusing on early stage biotechs that don't even have a product on the market yet versus the more established players like Biogen, Gilead, Celgene? Whereas, so talking with Brian, he was like, no, maybe we should have some core positions in some of these more established biotechs like Celgene or Gilead or Biogen. Then maybe start with 4 to 6 smaller positions in companies like Ionis Pharmaceuticals, companies that have a lot of drugs in development but don't necessarily have revenue coming in from drugs that are selling right now. So kind of figuring out that distinction between the more established players that have drugs on the market, they have a pretty deep pipeline, versus those early stage biotechs. Then starting with smaller positions in those early stage biotechs, maybe a little bit bigger positions in those more established players.